Welcome everyone to Audio Issues Happy Hour. I am your host Björk Finn Benediktsson, author of Step by Step Mixing and founder of Audio Issues. It is a special Halloween episode, as you can see by my jacket that I just honestly actually do have lying around. And today we're going to talk about music production and promotion. As always, I'll crack open a beer. Today I'm drinking Dragoon Brewing Company Refraction Pale Ale, which is actually kind of almost solidified itself as one of my favorite beer as of late. So cheers to all of you. Let me know where you're calling in from or where you're watching from. And throughout, let me know what questions you have. And welcome and cheers. We're here to answer any of your questions, but I have a special guest today, Ryan from Indie Music Academy, and we're going to talk about all things production and promotion. So welcome, Ryan. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, pumped to be here. I don't have a beer, unfortunately. My fridge actually didn't provide any, so I'm doing a soft drink.
All right.
Still special though, but not as special.
Well, cheers anyway.
Cheers. Thank you.
Donnie Hill is here a little early. Thank you so much for coming. Let us know if there's anything that we can clarify for you when it comes to anything we're talking about, or no. Well, I would love to say no topic is off limits, but we only know so much, really. So, Ryan, for those that don't know you, tell us a little bit about you and Indie Music Academy.
Absolutely. So I am first and foremost a producer turned online marketer, and that almost happened out of necessity because I got my music degree and then immediately started working at Starbucks, and so I had to start learning more things, which happens a lot of times when you get a music degree. And so I fell into the world of marketing, got a lot of marketing jobs, and then that kind of just like made my brain see things differently, and I wanted to take all that new knowledge and apply it back to my music, and that's what I did. And then I started the Indie Music Academy because there are some big gaps that we have as artists. Some of them are mental, some of them are actually strategic and technical. And so what I do is take all that marketing knowledge, package it, transform it, make it accessible specifically for music creators, and just put it into that world, that lens, and so that's what the Indie Music Academy is all about. We have a YouTube channel and a blog, and anything marketing related or music production related, I'm super happy to discuss and chat and chop it up.
Cool. You touched on something that I'd love to know a little bit more about, and especially from your experience from your students. Sort of what are the mental blocks that you find in your students when it comes to the intersection of music production and marketing?
Oh, totally. Yeah. So this is literally something that I try to have a discussion with every time someone asks for help. And one of the biggest things is that people are like, I've been working so hard on my music. I've spent, sometimes, like, I think way too long, months on a track, or half a year, and they think that all of that hard work means that music is just going to speak for itself,
right?
And that it's going to just blow up their career, or I know that I'm jealous. I'm like literally like I have a stress ball over here of jealousy.
Yeah, Kurt, he's one of my insiders. He actually does, for a fact, know that I have this jacket because we were joking about it in the insider community. But he's a great musician, and so yeah.
Thanks for hopping on, Kurt. Yeah.
So
anyways, basically that's the biggest one. Just thinking that all that hard work will transfer, when it doesn't.
Yeah. If you build it, they will come, right? If you release it, they will listen.
Yeah, if they're like telepathic and they also check your Instagram religiously every day, that person will come. So
right. Right.
And some artists expect the results based off that mindset, and it just doesn't happen, and that's frustrating. And so I basically try to you know give them perspective. Like, don't worry, like it's not supposed to happen that way. Like, you're not doing anything wrong. You're just kind of putting a lot of effort into something that's just, it doesn't connect. And so it's a mindset thing that once we had that short conversation, and then they realize, yeah, that makes a lot of sense,
Yeah,
then it's something that, just with some just really honestly simple marketing strategies make a huge difference.
for sure.
Because you actually start marketing instead of expecting results from something that you're not doing. So,
Right. Question to the audience, and we'd love to hear some comments from you guys, and also any questions that you have. But maybe this will stimulate some food for thought. When your mix is finished and you're ready to release it, what is sort of the biggest struggle or biggest problem that you deal with to get people to listen to your music, or what sort of what's the biggest problem that you have with releasing your music sort of after you've hit published, after you see it on Spotify or any of the streaming services? How are you going about promoting it, and what sort of hindrances do you find as you're going through that process? Love to know more about that so we can help you out. We have some comments already here. Malcolm says, "How you doing, fellas? What's the plan today, guys?" So basically, we're going to talk about more about the after your mix is finished, and how to think about your music career as a long-term strategy, not just release a song to crickets. More thinking about it methodically from a marketing lens. I know that people run the other way when they think about marketing, but it can be very, very beneficial to have some basic understanding of how all of that works, because fundamentally, and I know you agree with this, Ryan,
mhm.
this is basically marketing is basically just storytelling.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the same whether you're an artist, whether you sell, I don't know, vitamin supplements, right? It's like the whole thing is just telling a story. Like even those cheesy infomercials, they all start out with like, "Do you open your cupboard and get buried in Tupperware?" It's just like, I mean, that's like the most simple
Right.
element of storytelling, right? And so, yeah, being creative with that as an artist is literally like the most exciting marketing opportunity there is, I think, in the world. You're an artist, you're creative, and you can take people on this journey through your art. And so, storytelling is literally marketing if what you're doing. And so, yeah, I think that's Malcolm said it. This is
Yeah.
what you need. Yeah, because you
Yeah.
can you can be like me and learn everything, about being an artist, about being music. I got a 4-year degree in music,
Right.
but then like, how do you do the rest? How do you communicate that art, which
Right.
is kind of a big gap
Yeah.
that my music degree didn't cover.
Right. Yeah. Malcolm, I had a follow up. He said that'd be great. He's in LA Film School right now. This is what I
Mm.
need. Tell us what you're learning about marketing, and whether they are adding, whether they touch upon that in LA Film School, and
Mhm.
where you feel like you may be stuck. Maybe we can start a conversation, or start helping you out that way. But I also want to touch upon something. I sort of incorrectly phrased it as a, now your mix is done, now the marketing starts, but that's not really true, right? It's
Yeah.
not, it's not a process that happens afterwards.
Not well, there is something that happens afterwards, but when you think of the whole process of, marketing, it's a really scary word, honestly. It's a word I don't really like because when it comes to being an artist, the better words that are, more useful to us are storytelling, like we just said, and then
Mhm.
the other one is just like relationship building or community building, if you want to think of it more in a fan-based setting, right? But
Right.
it's relationship building. And so, you know if every time today we say marketing, just kind of on a sticky note on your computer, whatever, just remember relationship building and storytelling, right? Then we'll be good, because that's really what it is.
Right.
And so when if you start that process once the song is mastered and you're just going to release it, and you think that you can build a relationship in just a few, posts or a few minutes or even a couple of days, then that's a big mistake too, because the relationship building process does take time. You should start that. Honestly, the best time to start that is when you're in the studio starting it. I mean, that's when the best stories are just unpacking, evolving on their own.
Yeah.
And you don't really have to force anything, which, forcing marketing is pretty much, the worst way to market, because it
Right.
just feels wrong that
Yeah.
people know they're being marketed to, and you don't even want, it doesn't feel good to market that way as a marketer. So really, as an artist, if you just, we storytell all the time with songwriting. I mean,
Right.
that's really what we love to do. We love to tell the stories about ourselves, or the stories about other people in our lives, or the experiences that we see around the world, or even things that are made up that have deeper meaning. And so, as a songwriter, taking that same purpose of relationship building through songs, storytelling through songs, and then transferring that before and after the actual song release, and just extending that artistry, the way that you communicate with your fan base. That's what I mean by marketing. That's what I love to teach. And so hopefully you can see that as just an extension of your creativity while you're making the song, while you're in the studio.
Right.
And so
It's I don't know how often I see on my, because I'm in a ton of Facebook groups that are all music production or music related in some way. One in particular is, it's called Make Pop Music. So shout out to Austin Hall and the crew there. But I see a lot of posts there where it's just people that are, they have their camera up and they're by the piano or have the guitar, and they're just like, I'm starting to work on this song. What do you guys think? And because that group is so engaging and everybody's very friendly in there, they get a lot of engagement and comments and things like that. But honestly, that's just them sharing their story and starting a marketing process by just saying like, well, I'm making this song. What do you guys think of it? And then you sort of turn that engagement into more, and then you work on the song more and you update that with other posts, maybe not always in that group, maybe on your own channel or things like that. And then you just sort of share the evolution of the song until the song is released, and hopefully by that point you've built up an audience that's curious enough about what you're working on so that they listen or well, buy the song. If that, I don't think people really buy music anymore. I mean, this very small percentage of people buy music, but
they do in
listening,
different ways. In
huh?
different.
Yeah, in different ways. Yeah. Instead of like listening, streaming, subscribing to an email list, maybe buying like a product from that creator or something like that. That's a different way of going about it. We have to have creative solutions to to the problem that the music industry doesn't sell its music anymore, independent, like from an independent artist standpoint.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah. And really, what you're doing is you're just kind of putting a little bit of just like wiggle room in your life as an artist. It's like, okay, a lot of times we fall into like, okay, I'm gonna go in the studio and be in like my cave and just like do my studio thing and be creative, right?
Right.
And then we enter the marketing mode, whatever, the release mode that every artist dreads, right? And then it's like, okay, there's this thing I have to do. I have to release this track now.
Yeah.
And
I have
and
to
so,
decide that it's done and I can't tweak it any longer, right?
right, after 6 months of mastering, and and finally release it, right? And then the marketing becomes like pulling teeth, and then it's unnatural. And so what it really does is it kind of takes that kind of like dichotomy of being and awkwardness, and really throws it out the window to a place where you're just being creative all the time. And there's just different mediums where that creativity exists, right? Whether it's through the recorded track, or through everything else that you should be doing all the time as an artist, right? With communicating with your fans, creating content, right? All that stuff technically falls under the umbrella of marketing, right? But that's also creative as well. It's a creative task. And so really taking away that, like, those extremes that we sometimes fall into, because I think that's maybe a lie that we've heard at some point, where we just have to get in our creative zone. But that creative zone can exist all the time
Yeah.
in through different activities. And so kind of getting off on a tangent a little bit.
That's fine. That's really what this is for. It's tangents and tales.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, ask your questions in the comments, honestly, because if you have any questions about that, or it's really like 99% of the blocks around marketing are just thinking that you have to do something when you really don't, and then not knowing, like, oh, I can actually just, like, talk about my life, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any questions you might have, throw them down, and we can dive in, get on more tangents, maybe get into like philosophical, juicy stuff. So
Yeah. So David says here, he has no idea what the biggest problem is, but he's still writing. But he plans to start releasing tracks in a month or two. So that's a great. So we know where he is. So I guess the Socratic method can be very helpful in this particular instance, because we can just ask a lot of questions. If the goal is to release something in 2 months, what are you doing now to create an audience around that track, right? Like, what channels are you on? What type of content are you creating? What are your strengths when it comes to creating content? Are you a good writer? Are you a good speaker? Do you like making videos? These are all questions you have to ask yourself, and then that sort of navigates you to your strengths, and that also fits into the channels that you should select. So, like, if you hate making videos, which I did for a really long time, that's why my YouTube channel, I've really only focused on a YouTube channel this year, but I've been doing audio issues for 10 years, right? And so, because I felt my strengths were the best as a writer, so I wrote a lot of content, and that's how I focused my strengths to share my story, uh, help others, pay forward what I was learning, both in audio engineering school and in various sessions and things like that. So, to ask David a lot of questions is like, what can you do now that will hopefully build an audience for the track that will come out in 2 months, right?
yeah, I know that too, David. Yeah, and this really goes, like, kind of, I mean, there's a rabbit hole there, but it also goes into the whole thing of, like, artists don't realize that, like, it's hard to talk about things unless if you do things, you know?
Right.
So and so, like, like, that whole going into the music cave mentality, and I'm just gonna, like, emerge, 3 months later with a finished EP or an album. It's like, that's gonna make your life so much harder down the line, if you're not letting people know what you're up to. And, like, honestly, musicians have it so easy because naturally we're doing a lot of interesting stuff,
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
creative people are interesting to non-creative people. And it might sound like we're putting all of us on a pedestal here. I mean,
Yeah. We're being really pretentious, and that's fine.
yeah. Yeah, let's just let it flow. So anyway, but no, that's the truth though. Like, if, to really, like, boil it down, if you play guitar, that's interesting to someone who doesn't play guitar. It's just a fact. It doesn't have to be pretentious.
Right.
Just like how, people who are making, like, scientific breakthroughs that I can't comprehend,
Right.
and are discovering crazy things, I admire. And it's just, they're on a ridiculous level. And so that's just true across all disciplines. And so if you're, not taking advantage of that, you're just, not only missing out on fans, but you're probably missing out on money too, because that's really, that they're related. That's why Ariana Grande makes $1 billion, right? It's really because she's just good at keeping people's attention because she has a really interesting life.
Yeah.
And so that's really easy to basically harness as a musician, we're just scared to do it sometimes.
Right.
Isn't that the truth? You know, it's just kind of scary to step out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of getting out of your comfort zone, which,
Mhm.
by definition isn't easy.
Yeah. Oh, and David, I think we actually want you to answer because we're here to help you right now.
Right.
So it's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Um, Donnie says he just started marketing his new home studio. My background was a session player, but I focused on mixing music. I recently relocated to Nashville.
Me
That
too.
sounds familiar.
Dude, I'm sitting in like an empty house right now because I just relocated to Nashville. It's not usually this boring. I do like art.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, what who are you to talk about like your super interesting life? You live in like
I
a
do.
an empty bedroom with two wide doors.
So there is a story behind this. Yeah. No, it's just me here in, in my empty house. I don't even have doorknobs, guys.
Well, so let's like there's a lot of interesting stuff there. So like I would share the story of like, fun session playing stories. Like what stories can you share about your session playing? And is there a story of why you got interested in mixing music? Can you spin that story to be helpful to others or interesting to read? Things of that nature. One of the queens of the internet is Emily Dolan Davis from the UK. She is a session drummer and she kills it with her content marketing. If you're not following her, you can get a lot of good ideas from what she does because she she's a session player. She just does remote online drumming for artists all over the world, and there might be some similarities and some ideas you can pick up from her actually. So check her out on Instagram. She has an Instagram and a YouTube, and she's everywhere. But there's plenty to unpack from your background that you can use to promote yourself in your studio, I believe.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that.
And then Scott, just to answer his question, there is a replay. This will automatically turn into a replay. Once we're done, it will live here forever, to haunt us to the rest of our lives, and that's fine. So if you can't watch it now and need to duck out, you can always pick up the thread later. Malcolm has a question that takes over our screen, which is great because there's probably a lot to talk about there. He doesn't have many followers. Honestly, I'm super lazy with social media. I've done some touring, wasn't very long, but definitely played and opened up as a great artist. I've spoken to a few people on how to gain traction in the use of Facebook ads to target a specific group of people were mentioned. How do you feel about Facebook ad marketing? All right, let's start there. Let's start with how we feel about Facebook ad marketing.
How do I feel about it? It's like, gosh, it's like the greatest gift of mankind. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you want about Zuck, but it's like, I don't know how many wonders we're on. It's like the 11th wonder of the world, maybe the 12th. I think they just stopped counting after all these inventions. But seriously, the ability to target your ideal fans, you know,
Yeah.
as precise as that, like, I'm gonna throw out something that is literally gonna change some of your lives. Imagine recording a cover song and then targeting the fans of the original band on Facebook.
Right.
Right. Like, imagine doing like a Rolling Stones cover and then targeting Rolling Stones fans.
Right. Right.
Marketing in a box.
Right. Yeah. So the targeting thing is like I use Facebook and Instagram advertising a lot, and that's just it's just one pillar of this overall strategy. So the one tactic to create and grow an audience, right? And I like to tell when I do mentorship on when I advise startups and businesses and people that want to grow their brands or whatever. I always talk about the two levers that you can pull to grow an audience. There's time and then there's money, right? And I used to say when I grew audio issues at the start, I didn't have any money, so I only had time. So I created all this content and took me forever, but it became this bedrock of what audio issues is. It's a lot of content you can find on Google, and I get like the articles that I write that I design to help people that want to learn about, you know, EQ, compression, reverb, delay, all of the main, you know, processors and how to mix and things like that gets found on Google. But then once you gain a certain amount of traction, you maybe become successful, maybe you have a marketing budget at some point, you have access to that second level. You've leveled up, and now that lever can be pulled, and you can pull the money lever to grow an audience. And in my case, it means I advertise the email list and the content that I've been sharing for free forever, but now to a new audience, a bigger audience, and to just a broader segment of the overall market that is looking to learn how to mix. And I have no interest in advertising my mixing tips to people that are just looking to learn about hiking, or, you know, or just want to buy the new football jersey or whatever. That is wasted advertising dollars. So the ability to be able to target people that are actually interested in music production is, like you said, a game changer.
Absolutely. Yeah, and obviously there's a learning curve for the tools, and you know, it takes some time to figure it out. It's not like a, I don't know, it's not like a money switch, but I mean, it really is
No,
incredible.
definitely. There's a lot more to it than that.
But
Yeah, you don't get access to just like an actual lever, which would be great. Just like somebody shows up with a box and you just like, yeah, money. You actually have to spend a lot of money before you understand how it works.
big trial and error. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
normal. It's normal.
Right. Pedro asks, how about the best way to start? First steps. So follow-up question, please put that in the comment there in the chat. So when you say start, what are we talking about? Starting marketing? Are we talking about starting music? First steps in what field? And I guess the better way for me to understand how to help is, what are you trying to achieve? So let's put a pin in that for later. Hopefully Pedro will get back to us. Malcolm asks, what is your process before you do content creation? I'm curious about your process. How do you come up with content?
Oh, I mean, there's like, there's a couple of categories. I'd say there's like the really serious content where it's like super like meaningful, and like it's supposed to create like an emotional response, and like there's a purpose to that. You know, you can't always just be like, you know, listen to this, like click this, like watch this. You know, there's a give and a take. You know, it's basically like, well, it's kind of like dating. You know, we're gonna go there. And let's say that, you know, you're dating someone for the first time,
Yeah.
and you sit down at the table and you just go right in for that kiss. Just right there on the first date, you know, and it's like, you haven't even ordered food yet, you know.
Right.
And so a lot of times when we transfer that into marketing, it's like, hey, oh, you found my profile, you know, it's, here's my music.
Right.
You know, and every link, every video you've ever made, every music video, you know. So that's sometimes not the right type of content to lead with, you know.
Right.
And so going back to this theme that we're kind of bouncing around on, the theme of storytelling, it's really just making sure that, you know, as humans, as residents of planet Earth, whatever feels right, you know, to you, if you were that fan, that's what I would start thinking about. You know, like if you're discovering an artist, what do you wish that you got, you know, kind of right off the bat? And it's definitely not a hard sell or hard marketing or like click this link or buy this or download this. You know, you're probably going to want something a little more on the relationship building side.
Right.
So definitely brainstorm what that could be. That was a good question, though, Malcolm.
Yeah.
Look. Mhm.
For me, because I do my content creation is a little bit different because I have such a specific topic to talk about, which is mixing or music production or things of that nature. So I always lead with a problem, like what pissed me off in my latest mix that I was working on that I figured out how to solve. What problems have I seen in other people's mixes, because I have lots of students and members. And if I notice a trend, then that's a piece of content that I can easily create. If there is a yeah, well, I lost my train of thought there, but basically leading with the problem. Oh yeah, and all the questions that I get. So if I get a question often, it's like, well, and I can't just like answer that question by sending them a link to an article. I have to write that article, obviously,
Mhm.
because if 5 people have that question, I'm sure 50 other people might have it later down the line as well.
Mhm.
And having something to give them as a solid answer to that question can be it's just an easy way for me to make content.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
they'll love you forever. You
huh?
know, they'll love you forever. Like, you made this video just for me.
Right. Yeah, and it's the easiest thing in the world is like creating a blog post that just starts, I got this question from a reader, from Dave or whoever, and here it is, and it's like maybe either an edited paraphrase or just the straight quote, and then I just dive into what my take would be, what my answer would be, basically. So those are sort of the pillar ways that we make content, from the music maker side and sort of the music, I guess, the music teacher side in a way. All right. Yeah. David said, awesome. I can write cool stories about what's going on day to day. That's basically what I do all the time.
Mm.
And the power of analogies is something that I try to harness a lot. When something that happens to me that's super mundane and boring, but can be is kind of like something that is mixing related, I can create an article to explain a topic that may be complex, but because people understand the boring day to day thing, you sort of trick them into understanding the more complex topic.
Love it.
Oh, oh yeah, you found Emily's Facebook there.
She's epic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Uh, let's see here. Feel free to put any questions you have. I'm going through the chat here real quick. Let's see. Harry has a question. He says, I'm a songwriter with a passion for engineering, currently working on a 7-song release. I've been on CD Baby since 2005 or so, but have not marketed. Need to know where to start before the release. I think this is a great place to talk about your hub, which is your website, and your spokes, which are your channels, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot to say about sort of the website and what do you call them, like a fan journey or like a fan magnet. So talk a little
Exactly.
bit about that.
Yeah, I love that you said that. This is literally the same analogy I use all the time, where you got to make sure that you have your hub built, and that can be like a number of actual, um, tools. Like a website is a tool that holds content, right? It can hold your artist bio, videos, images. Another tool can be something like mailing list software, like Mailchimp,
Yeah.
and all of those tools, basically, they create your hub. It's where your music business, so to speak, where your artist business is kind of happening, right? And someone can either be on the inside of that or on the outside, right? And most of the time, when we're starting out in marketing, most of the fans are on the outside. They're on the periphery. They're on your social channels. They're maybe a list from some kind of thing that you did one time, maybe a handwritten list of emails from a show,
Yeah.
or
Right.
of people who bought your merch, 4 years ago, right? And so the best way to start is just to kind of assess what assets you have, right? Maybe you have a bunch of emails, like I just said, handwritten in a notebook, right? Assess what you have and start building that hub out a little bit, because much of, especially now in the current, the whole world seems to be on fire right now. Uh, everything is pretty much online right now, and so there's no better time to kind of like start assessing exactly what you have and start building that hub, especially the untapped. There's probably a ton of untapped resources that you have, especially you've been doing music since '05. So I would assess like what kind of merch do you have sitting in the garage that you can maybe leverage and try to activate some old fans, or what kind of content do you have that you can once again try to reactivate some old fans and try to try to build something up, like an updated 2020 online marketing plan for your music. Especially, I don't want those 7 songs to go to waste. It seems like a lot of work.
Right.
So definitely, that's what I would do personally. You've been doing it for so long, I would just assess and try to make sure that all that stuff is leveraged and not going to waste.
Right. And so, you know, you have 7 songs. That's 7 stories, right? At least 7 pieces of content in some way. There's also within those stories, so within the song, you have the story of the song being written, you have the story of the song being produced, you have the story of what the song is about, you have the story of your journey since the last CD or something like that. So there's plenty to build and plenty to unpack there that you can share as you grow an audience,
Mhm.
or share to build an audience, honestly. So cool. Malcolm asks, when did you know it was time to release your content? When and how did you start? So I highly recommend you go to the Wayback Machine and look up both audio-issues.com and audio-production-tips.com, which
There it
was
is.
the original domain for Audio Issues back in 2009. And then there's also the OG WordPress site called audiotipaday.wordpress.com.
That's big.
So
Man.
you can see like early 20s Björkvin trying to figure out how to write about audio productions, because all that stuff is still live. It's just still sitting somewhere. And well, not the Wayback Machine shows you how things have evolved, but it was awful and ugly and dumb and naive and all that. But the reason I started writing and started releasing content was I was in audio school. I was writing down what I was learning in such a way to, one, pay it forward if anybody would listen, right? But also the best way to teach, or the best way to learn something, is to have the knowledge so solidified in your mind that you can teach it to others. And because if you read a book, that knowledge will not necessarily stick. But if you read a book with the intent of teaching that book to somebody else, you really have to read that book, right? And so that's how Audio Issues started in general. It started as an exercise in retaining the knowledge, to be uh, to be well, honestly, to be best in audio school. um, and uh, and then it just grew from there. I just never stopped learning, because that's not really, you can't really stop learning if you have a mindset of continuous improvement. And I also started growing an audience, and it started to gain traction. And I thought that there was something there, so I just kept at it. What about you? How did your content journey change from musician to sort of entrepreneur and along the way?
Just a happy accident, man. Happy accident. Actually, so yeah, I think it was so unlike like literally opposite from you. I started in like videos and YouTube and then added on the blog. So like literally flip flop.
Yeah.
And I was kind of just thinking, I should just take the advice of someone who's much smarter than me, who's actually tuned in right now, Omari. Omari, good friend, really smart guy, said you should just document your life, document the process.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, here I go. Today I'm going to register one of my songs on BMI to get royalties, and I'll just make a video of how to do that, and I'll put it on YouTube. And literally, like, innocently, just like, what's up, guys? I'm going to, what's up? I'm Ryan. I have a studio, music, whatever, and I'm going to show you how I'm doing this, just in case anyone else is confused by how confusing this confusing thing is.
Right.
So I did that, and that video ended up hitting the search results. Once again, that's a whole thing, search engine optimization, traffic, but that's a whole world. And so that is literally the first piece of content that started sending people into my world. And they're like, thank you for this video. Can you make more? Can you make one about this other thing? And
Right.
yeah, so that's pretty much the happy accident that I fell into. And then wanting to learn more about like, oh shoot, people love this. Like, how do I make this happen again? And just learning more about content creation as I went. So I think someone asked, like, when do you know when to start? It's like, well, you kind of just start.
Yeah.
And
Before you're ready, actually.
before you're ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Start before you're ready. That's exactly, that's such good advice. Yeah, that's such good advice. Because that's literally what happened to me. I was like, I don't know how to make YouTube videos, but I'll make them anyways.
Well, figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't know how to walk once.
Hey, well, you know what? I almost figured that out. I almost cracked my head open today walking in my own house. So I can't officially claim that I've learned.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
never master it either. It's like with everything's a learning process. You keep going. You make mistakes along the way.
Yeah. You trip, you fall, you nearly break your arm, and you get right back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Pedro got back to us here. Basically, he's asking where to start after your track is done. So basically, marketing. So,
Mm-hmm.
what I mean, well, I guess since we asked follow-up questions, we've talked a lot about it. But basically, create your hub, find a channel that you can consistently create content on, and that makes you comfortable, or at least the least uncomfortable to start with, I guess, is probably the better way of putting it, because you're never going to be, if you're doing something for the very first time, it's never going to be very comfortable. And then then you just sort of start there, and then you grow that over time. And then once a particular channel takes off, you might go on another one based on what your bandwidth is, really, like for like how much capacity you have to create content. And sometimes it's as easy as just reposting a lot of the content on another channel, because the content's just as valuable, but there are maybe two different audiences on two different channels, and the audience that's being technically neglected on a secondary channel might want that content, even though it's old content technically. But if it's evergreen content that's always helpful, then there's nothing wrong with cross posting.
Oh yeah. I think just because I care about you, man, I'm gonna go a little hardball. maybe a little tough love. If you're thinking of starting the marketing process when the track is done, you started it a little late. You might have to play a little catch up. So I think one of the most important things I can say to you is learn how to be comfortable when things aren't finished or when things are in process. Like, learn how to find find the story, find the thing to share, find the content, the piece of content when the track isn't done,
Right.
or when it feels like a little uncomfortable to share. That's the perfect time to begin sharing.
Right.
And so that's hopefully you can take that and completely run with it with some
Yeah.
great marketing, great storytelling, because that's the key. It might not feel done to you, but that's like the juicy part that people want to be involved in, is the process and being
Yeah.
uh, involved behind the scenes. So
Right.
do that.
Well, I mean, it's like there is a reason, as much as you can hate or like reality TV, there is a reason it's popular, right? People like seeing uh, uh, train wrecks happen in real time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hopefully, so even if you're making mistakes and it's a happy accident, you can also document that, as long as the final product is something that is fun and enjoyable and educational or entertaining, depending on what type of stuff you're working on, right? Harry has a follow-up question here. Asks, is 7 songs a good number, or should I add another 3? This kind of goes into the question of like, what is an album today?
What is an album
Yeah.
today? That's the answer, actually. That's the answer to the question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a Schrodinger's cat sort of thing.
Oh, oh, deep.
Yeah. I don't think there's any good number for an album. I think you can, like, if you like today, the like traditional wisdom is like release one song at a time, and because it'll give you something to talk about all the time. It's because it gives you more fodder for marketing, and you don't get tired of marketing the same complete album, because you can just talk about one song for a month and then release another song. You get to talk about that song. Uh, so it's a little easier and a little more fresh to come up with stuff to talk about. But I don't think I mean, traditionally, like 10 songs is an album. Up to what, 5 is technically an EP, or traditionally an EP. 7 is somewhere in the middle. But I don't think it matters. I think the songs matter, and what you're what you're doing with it, and how you are reaching people with those songs. And if you think of your music career as a long-term game, then you want your music career to last as long as possible. And sometimes it's a matter of uh, making the marketing strategy a priority, and maybe not making because you can always release the album. Like, once you've released every single song as a single, you could always release an album at that point. You know,
Absolutely.
because that's the thing too about the modern music industry, is there's no gatekeepers. Like, nobody can tell you what to do.
Totally. Yeah, I actually have a really strong opinion about this. My VIP members know
Okay.
exactly what I would tell them, and I'll tell you the same since you're here, Harry. Really appreciate it too. I would say, like, never, ever, 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 ever just release an album, because what you're doing is you're missing 7 opportunities to grow your fan base.
Right.
Right? Literally, like, you think of it like this. Having a release is one of the greatest events of your music career, right? And fortunately, it's like one that we can all get excited about. New songs coming out, or a new group of songs, right? Uh, and so, like, releasing all 7 songs in one event is literally 7 times worse than having 7 events and 7 launch parties and 7 opportunities to grow your mailing list and 7 opportunities to run ads if you're at that level and 7 opportunities to do a live stream concert and 7 opportunities. It goes on and on and on.
Right.
And so when you think of it from a logistical fan growth standpoint, you're going to want to actually hold back songs and make every song special, because that's what grows fans, creating special moments,
Yep.
creating special moments specifically around your music. And so what I would do is exactly what Bjorn said, is release those singles and then crank out that album later. You can hold back maybe 1 or 2 tracks to make the album release
Right.
special. Yeah.
Special. Nice.
So if you're thinking of adding another 3, I mean, if you have songs in the bank, then what I would do is release 7 singles and then have those 3 songs produced by the time you release the album. And
Yeah.
then Shazam, you got a 10-track album, and you also had 7 opportunities to grow your fan base, and you're just rocking and rolling. So that's what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope you take that advice to heart and think about how you can exponentially increase your reach and your audience and your fan base that way, for sure. Pedro asks, best tool to start: mail, Facebook, Instagram, other. So mail.
Everywhere.
Well, so like we said, we said touched upon this a little bit. There's the hub, which is your website. Should always have an email list function of some sort. And then you have a channel or a spoke or whatever, and that is then your Facebook or your YouTube or your Instagram or whatever. And that channel choice is dictated by your strengths and your comfort with one or the other. If it could be a podcast, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be just a Facebook fan page. Malcolm says, it sounds good info. I always thought I'd feel comfortable. I haven't even released a track because I keep learning new methods to make my tracks better. So this is an interesting thought process too. Because you never stop learning, it can actually hinder you from actually growing. Because if you're not releasing, you're not sharing your growth and you're not sharing your art. If you're constantly tweaking, there is going to be a diminishing rate of return after a certain point where maybe your song sounds like mildly better to you, but does anybody else care? And that's really the question. Like, and will you not grow better or grow more over time if you just stop thinking that your perfectionism is because perfectionism is just another way of procrastinating, because you're constantly working on one thing without ever releasing it, which means that you actually never get anything done.
Yeah,
And so I would take those new methods and put those new methods that you're learning and put those into your next track.
totally. I mean, you have to realize that you're not alone in feeling that way too. Like I mean, the Beatles, look back at their early stuff and they're like, this is garbage, You listen to like early Blink 182, it's like, wow, those guys sucked, you know. And so, but that doesn't mean that people can't like you, That doesn't mean that people aren't going to like your songs either. And it's really about taking people on that journey that we talk about, that fan journey. And there's like there's like the immediate version of that, but there's also like the long, like your journey and growth over the years. That is important too. So yeah, exactly what Dorvin said. It's like, just do it, release. Don't sacrifice your growth for something that probably only you care about.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but
And I'll put this into terms because, like, what I release art is training of some sort, and so like the book is probably the best example, because this book is very popular and has helped a lot of people since it was released for the first time in 2017. I did a re-release, a second edition, and then I released it in paperback then, and I added to it, and I like made it even better. But but I never could have made it better if I hadn't released the earlier version in the first place. And don't get me started on like the first ebooks that I wrote that were, you know, way worse, right? They were, although the content was probably valuable and helpful to a lot of people, it probably did not stand up to the quality of what my standards are today. Because if you release things, if you put things out in the world when they're 80% done, and then you keep doing that, and you consistently release, say you release something, whatever, a piece of creative art every month, at when you can, when it's at 80% done, right? After a year, you've released 12 things, and you're 80% at when you're releasing that 12th thing is so much better than the 80% at the beginning of the year. So growth doesn't come unless you actually like release and keep going and keep working.
Absolutely. I think I just want to extend that too. Like, if you're not practicing storytelling with your fan base, if you're not practicing actually, launching your songs with a marketing plan, and you're scared of it, or you think like, oh, I got to have the perfect marketing plan or whatever it might be, the same thing is true. Like, yeah, your first song release, might flop, and maybe you want to tweak, some of the marketing strategies or whatever, but at least you tried it, and at least you have something to grow upon. And so that's honestly, that's just good life advice right there. So thanks for that. And you know, it's so true with songs.
Yeah,
It's so true with music in general.
definitely.
Like, chasing perfection is not is not the way.
Right.
Not
Right.
the way. Yeah.
Right. Oh, cool. Well, we seem to have helped some people. Harry is showing his appreciation here, which is great. Thank you so much for listening, and hopefully that advice helps. I'm pretty confident that it helps. I feel like it's solid advice. I mean, it's helped me get to this place, and it's helped you get to where you are. So, he also has a follow-up question. So the wheel could be, or the hub could be a website and social media, the spokes. Yeah, basically. So everything should lead back to the website in some way, because that's where you have the most control. Yeah, cool. What else is? Feel free to. Oh, well, I guess we're already mostly out of time here. But let's take a quick final question here. I know you love this one. What distribution for software should you use?
Yeah, this is my most asked question of like all existence. So, my man Pedro, there's literally no way to really distribute without the help of someone, some of these companies, right? I think that the only yourself option would be do, I guess, like a SoundCloud or a Bandcamp release, right? Every other way, you're going to need to sign up with a distributor. And that's basically what you've listed off here, different distribution companies. And I can't really tell you which ones to do. I can tell you which one not to do. I have an in-depth YouTube video on why you should not choose DistroKid, so you can always check that out on the channel. But as for all the others, I can't really tell you that, because you should probably pick the one that has the best features, pricing model, and just the one that's the best fit for you. Like, for example, TuneCore is a subscription based; you have to pay yearly. And CD Baby, for example, you pay a one-time fee and your song is distributed forever, but you'll pay more up front. And they also take a cut of your royalties, where TuneCore doesn't take any cut. They give you 100%. So it's just totally different pricing model, totally different setup, even though the end result is going to be the same. Your song will end up on Spotify, it'll end up on Apple Music. So as far as like the quality of these companies, with the exception of DistroKid, it's really the pricing model. So if you want to learn more about why DistroKid's terrible, check out that video. But if you want to do it yourself, you can do a self-release on Bandcamp and make tons of money. I was working with an artist who does that, and literally every release she makes somewhere between 500 to $1,000 on Bandcamp, and it's ridiculous. So it's that's all I have to say about that.
Right. Yeah, Bandcamp's great. But you know, for the greatest amount of reach, you're gonna need a distributor for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, cool. We're on the hour mark here, so I think it's time to say goodbye. But there's one thing, for if any of you thought the stuff that we were talking about was interesting, we are doing a fun bundle 2-for-1 deal until tomorrow night of my Mix Finisher Formula flagship course from Audio Issues, which is I think it has 60 plus videos on how to finish your mixes, or how to mix from start to finish. And bundled with that is Ryan's course, how to start a profitable music career from scratch.
Absolutely. Yeah. How to build it from the very beginning. You don't even have to have a song out, because what it talks about is building your fan journey and learning how to use social media and email to storytell, and to basically, just like the title describes, build that profitable music career from scratch, right? From the very beginning. And so if you feel that marketing is your gap, and you would like something that you can just dive into no matter where you are in the song release process, this is not a song launch formula. That's another product that I have. This is building the foundations of your music career from the very beginning. And so just like what we've been talking about with the hub and the spokes, like what we were talking about with Harry, this is literally how to build that from the ground up.
Cool. Yeah. Malcolm asks for a link. It is in the description on YouTube, and it should be in the description on Facebook as well. But I did just post it as a comment, so you can check it out there. It goes to the page. You can see both courses and what it includes there. And but yeah, it's definitely something valuable that you can get if you are interested in finishing your mixes, making radio ready, release ready mixes, and records really, and then bundled with a killer course that helps you build that music marketing and promotional foundation that helps you take your music career, or have sort of a long-term strategy with your music career. Because honestly, like Ryan started, like if you're working at Starbucks, you may want to find a different gig.
Oh, man. So that's another live stream. We can talk all about that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming, everyone. Thank you for all your questions. I really hope it was useful. It seems like we shared some good knowledge here that helped a few people. So thank you all for coming, and happy Halloween, and cheers to you all, and we'll talk later. And if you are not on Ryan's email list, go to indiemusicacademy.com, sign up there. If you are not on my email list, go to audioissues.com and sign up there. You get my Mix Finisher cheat sheet that helps you create mixes that are ready for release and translate to all other speaker systems, because you want your song to sound good everywhere you play it. So
totally. Yep.
All right. Take it easy, guys. See you later.